Good afternoon, everyone. I am Myra Rhoden, and I am here with Dr. Zandra McRoy. And welcome to our session on empowering your girls to lead. We would like to thank the Louisiana Music Educators Association for the invitation to be here today and to share a few ideas with you about empowering your girls in your music program to become leaders in your school and beyond. So we just want to tell you real fast who we are. I'm Myra Rhoden. I live in Atlanta, in the Atlanta area, and I'm from Tuskegee, Alabama. Went to the University of Alabama for 2 degrees and University of Southern Miss for 1. I teach in Fayetteville, Georgia. I'm a high school band director, and this is year number 28 for me. Also the founder of the Athena Music and Leadership Camp, which is an all-girls program for band and orchestra in, of course, improve musicianship and leadership skills. Just on a side note, I have been the first woman band director at every job I've had. And I actually attended a high school, even though I loved my high school band director. I attended a high school where girls were not allowed to try out for drum major, the highest leadership position at the time. And we had a lot of unspoken gender roles in our band program. The girls did one thing and the guys did another. And hopefully those things are changing now. But I was also fortunate enough to have a college marching band director who happened to be the first woman to conduct an NCAA Division I marching band. And so she was a very, very influential figure. She was the first woman I had as a conductor. Had her in high school, my senior year, when I went to the Honor Band Festival at the University of Alabama, and then had her again as a marching band director. Before that, I had never seen or even been conducted by a woman. So that was, she was very influential in my life. Dr. McRoy?
Well, I am Zandra McRoy, as Myra said earlier, and I am from Monroe, Georgia. So I grew up right here in Georgia. I'm a Georgia peach. I graduated from the University of Georgia. I've gotten all of my degrees from UGA. I'm a quad dog, and so I have given them all of my money and a good bit of my youth. I'm the fine arts chair, the high school band lead teacher for my county, and the director of bands at Cedar Shoals High School here in Athens, Georgia, in Clark County. And I've been with the Athena Music and Leadership Camp from the very beginning. And I serve as senior faculty and site director for the Atlanta camp. And I've believed in it from the beginning. And our vision is so dear to my heart that I hope that Myra will keep me on for always. And I have also been the first woman or Black woman band director at every school that I've taught, except for one. I actually followed a Black woman at one of the middle schools that I've taught, and it was great. It was a new experience because I didn't get I've never had a female band director stuff before. I was lucky. I had a female middle school band director, and she showed me early that women can do this. It's easy. You know, it's not a big deal. So it didn't seem like a big deal to me. But I've never had a Black woman as a band director, or any woman of color for that matter, as a band director. So I'm still waiting on that day. So yeah, that's just a little bit about me.
So our clinic today, you know, we're not here to speak for all women, but we're here to share some proven strategies that have worked for us as teachers and leaders in the profession. And some of the information that you'll see today may make you feel a little bit uncomfortable, but that's okay. We're all here to learn.
So today we're going to talk about, we're going to self-reflect. We're going to do some self-reflection on current practices. And that's like a hot button word. People use that all the time in education. It's a thing about self-reflection, but it really does work. And it really is important to grow as an educator. We're going to go over multiple strategies to foster growth and leadership in secondary school girls. And we're going to talk about promoting self-evaluation, self-advocacy, and increased confidence in your young women. This is a quote that I think Myra and I both love, and I say this to my kids all the time. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Maya Angelou. So true. People will always remember how you made them feel. And if you made them feel empowered and inspired and enlivened, then you've won as an educator.
So let's talk about cultural responsiveness. And we put the word review on here because that is a buzzword that I'm sure you've heard recently. It is definitely not a new concept. And some of your school systems may have actually had professional development opportunities for you on cultural responsiveness. But to be sure we're on the same page, we just want to review some definitions. So let's break it down. The definition of culture. So you have the customs, arts, social institutions, and achievements of a particular nation or a people or a social group. So think about religion. Think about language, think about social habits, think about music, all right? That is all a part of the culture. Sometimes gender roles as well, a part of the culture. Another definition of that would be the set of shared attitudes or values or goals and practices that characterize an institution or an organization. That organization can be your band, it can be your orchestra, it can be your music classroom. So the shared attitudes and values and goals of an organization. So if someone says the culture of your program, that's what it means. So what is responsiveness? Responsiveness is the quality of reacting quickly and reacting positively, the ability to adjust to changes that may happen in your program. And so why is that important? It helps those on the receiving end feel heard. It helps them feel seen. It helps them feel valued. And it also shows that you listen and that you care if you're responsive to what's going on. So if you put those two things together, that is cultural responsiveness. So that is a pedagogy that recognizes the importance of cultural references in all aspects of learning. And like we said, this is not a new concept. It's not a new concept. So in other words, it is an approach that makes connections between what you're teaching and what your students are experiencing culturally. What you're teaching and what your students are experiencing culturally.
So this concept, like Myra said, is not new. This is something that we've been discussing for years now. And it's just now that we are really beginning to really think about listening and responding from a cultural lens, through a cultural lens. So it's really important that we have these conversations now, but it's not new. It's been there forever. But what we're now doing is really bringing it to light. So cultural responsiveness focuses on self. It focuses on your awareness. It increases your awareness of the influence culture has on your students and positive interactions with them. So when you think of cultural responsiveness, it is not about them, it's about you. So it turns the mirror around on you and how you respond when you are in dealing with students, all students. It doesn't matter what they look like, their gender, their race, their ethnicity, sexual orientation, none of that. It's about how you react. As long as you teach students, you will need to respond to them. And so this isn't going away. If you want to reach all of them, the response must be positive. The response must be positive. Let's begin to think of your girls in your classes. Expectations of genders can sometimes be shaped by culture. This can include family roles as well as roles in the community, school, or leadership roles in your band. We can help to strengthen your students' sense of identity You can promote equity and inclusion, and you can engage students. These are so important when dealing with students of all cultures.
So let's do a little bit of self-reflection. Examine and evaluate your ideas of what leadership looks like. So think about some words that you think about when you hear the word leadership. You know, is it strong? Is it powerful? Is it in charge? If you want to type some of those words in the chat, please do. But think about some of those words that you think of when you think about the word leader. Now, as you think about that, are those words masculine? Are they feminine? Or are they neither one? Can they apply? Do you think of them more in a masculine way, a feminine way, or neither? So also, as you're self-reflecting, think about, examine and evaluate your reactions to women on the podium or in leadership roles. Have you ever said, oh, I really don't like having a female principal? Or have you ever thought about the differences between having a male principal and a female principal? Have you personally ever been under a conductor who is female? Like I said, my first time was a senior year in high school. I think both of us are still waiting to be under a conductor that actually looks like us. So just think about that. Think about how your reactions to people who are on the podium. And then also evaluate your girls' current leadership roles in your program. So are your girls only the woodwind leaders? Are your guys only the brass leaders? You know, what do the girls do in your band program or your orchestra or chorus program? So self-reflect and think about what is actually happening in your programs right now.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about microaggressions. All right, so this is where Myra was saying you may get a little uncomfortable, but that's okay. Is my audio okay for everyone? Is it okay? Okay, great. So let's just talk about microaggressions. Let's first define it. Microaggression is a statement, action, or incident regarded as an instance of indirect, subtle, or unintentional discrimination against members of a marginalized group. Okay. Also, bias. Prejudice in favor of or against one thing, person, or group compared with another. So these are not, again, not new concepts, not new words, but we're finally talking about it. We're finally talking about it. So why is it important to recognize microaggressions and biases? Why is that important? And why is it important to talk about it? Well, let's start with this. Your ensemble is a reflection of you as the director, as the leader. And moods, excitement, handling disappointments, microaggressions, all of those things, those students will reflect that back. And so they're going to do what they see you do. And they're going to imitate the model, the example that you set. Intentionally or unintentionally, lowering expectations for girls can be a reality. And I would say 98% of the time, it is very unintentional. People lowering their expectations for their girls, but it can be damaging and it can leave a lasting impression on your young ladies. It's not healthy, but it's something that we can fix if we talk about it and we discuss it and we are honest with ourselves about it. All right, so let's talk through some examples of microaggressions. Telling your girls to control their emotions. Or do we tell boys to do that? We're always talking about girls are so emotional. Girls are so emotional. You know, let's just segue into this next one. It must be that time of the month. Not a good look. Not a good look. You wouldn't tell your boys, control your emotions. Is it Shark Week? I mean, we don't say things like that for the boys. So just making sure that we're not unintentionally making those types of comments. You should smile more. I've gotten that my whole life. Men, especially men, sometimes women, telling me you should smile more. Why should I be smiling right now? I am working. I'm in it. Like I'm really trying to work this music. Why should I be smiling? You don't tell your boys to smile, now do you? Tuba, you want to play the tuba? No, try the clarinet or the flute instead. We can't perpetuate that. My best tuba players have mostly been girls. They're meticulous. They pay attention to everything you say, and they can handle it. They carry that tuba just fine. We find that a lot with parents that will assume that some instruments are for girls and some are for boys. It's our job to educate them and let them know that is not true. That's not the deal. Instruments have no gender. I've heard a lot of women say this one. I hate having female principals. Come on, ladies. We got to do better. But that's a microaggression. Microaggressions don't just come from men. Microaggressions come from anyone. Another one, offense, is when we have the ball. So and Myra can attest to this, she has a really great story about a superintendent giving her a little football lesson, even though she went to a Division I football powerhouse school. But I'm still going to say go Dogs. But, people just will assume that a female drum major might not know what you mean about football when you're talking about things. That's not true. Yeah, I knew about football and went to Georgia, so I've had people do that to me too, trying to explain to me what a live ball means. Thank you for that explanation. I appreciate it. Why don't you take notes for us during this leadership meeting? Are you asking your young man to do that or a young lady to do that? Are you only giving the band secretary / librarian job to a girl, or do you sometimes give that to a boy? So making sure that we're not perpetuating these stereotypes. Be careful what you wear. You know how boys are. We're not talking to the boys about their behaviors in reaction to what girls are wearing and treating them with dignity and respect, but we're telling the girls to be responsible for other people's reactions to their clothing choices. So those are all examples of microaggressions. Again, mostly unintentional. Most people are not working from a space of, trying to make people feel bad, but it can happen, and we have to be aware of it as educators and make sure that we're paying very close attention to the way that we interact and speak with our students. Let's see. All right, so another one, and this one is a huge pet peeve of mine, mansplaining. Please don't mansplain your young ladies. I know women that can fix cars better than men. That know more about cars than they do, that know more about sports. Women are just like men. We're all human. We have different interests and different likes. So try not to mansplain. Assuming that a high school band director wouldn't know about football is a great example of mansplaining. Exploring why information regarding microaggressions can be upsetting is really important. So try to take yourself and put yourself in someone else's shoes for a moment and try to think about how they feel in reaction to what you're saying, making sure that you run that through your head before it comes out of your mouth. We all have to work on that. We're all, works in progress, but that is really important. Run it through your head before you say it and think, how would I feel if someone said that to me and I was a woman, or I was, someone with, varying abilities, all of those things. And so oftentimes we characterize women that express strength and focus. And I'm going to speak from my own experience. being mean. I've had a lot of people say, oh, she's so mean. She's cold, she's abrasive, abrupt, aggressive, and sometimes people just call you a bitch. Sorry to say it, but they do, and it's not fair. It's a microaggression, and it's uncalled for. So we have to have these discussions so that we can move forward. It's just that simple.
So let's talk about the idea of girls as leaders. So right there in the middle in the purple, if you did a Google search right now for a couple of these terms, tell me what you would see. And you have to remember that your students will Google these terms and will see the same thing. So if you do band director in Google right now, what are you going to see? Well, I actually did it a few minutes before this clinic just to see if it changed any, and it hasn't much. So if you see band director, it'll be mostly men, mostly white men, a few black men, and you have to scroll a few pages before you get to the first black woman. So just think about all of the young ladies and gentlemen in your program that may not be white or black. They could be another ethnicity that wants to be a band director, or those the genders that are not really represented in a Google search. What about if you do section leader? Well, you'll see a lot of group photos for that one, mostly girls. But still, the race will be a little bit different than what you see. It'll be pretty much the same. What if you did drum majors? Now, this is actually a better mix of girls and guys, but if you click on the pictures, it's normally because of an article, because the woman was the first drum major at her school, the first female drum major at her school, or the first all-female team, which can be great, especially for the girls in your program. So still, just think about that. Your students will see what you see. So just do those Google searches just to see what you find out. So think about things in your band, and we talked about this before. What do your students see in your personal leadership team? Who do they see as drum majors? Who do they see as officers? Now, we are not suggesting to just give those leadership positions because of gender, but be sure that you are including all genders when you are doing those selections. And so which sections, again, are they leading? Are girls only in your woodwind sections, or are they in the brass sections? And the same with the guys that are in your program. So let's talk a little bit about leadership training. So remember, leaders can be taught. Everybody, all the students may not know, especially your girls, that they can be leaders. They may not feel like they can be leaders in your program. So leadership training is very, very important. You have to remember that leaders are created. Leaders are created, not born. So you have to develop those leadership skills in your program for your young ladies to lead, such as decision-making skills, problem-solving skills, communication skills, and of course, professionalism.
So what are these skills? And if you can hear the rain, it just started here, so I'm sorry if it gets really loud. There's a lot of thunder and rain right now. But what are some of the skills that girls need to build, that you need that have to be developed in our girls? One of them is self-evaluation. And why is it important? Well, it helps girls to realize their own potential. You will find that young ladies are often much more critical of themselves and their abilities than your young men. And so getting them to recognize their accomplishments, things that they're proud of, things that they are good at, things that they are, skills that they possess, skills that they want to develop. So really evaluating themselves in a more neutral way instead of just criticizing themselves is really important. Interpersonal skills are important as well. Their ability to communicate with and interact with people. That's really important. Having those conflict resolution skills, problem solving skills, teamwork, constructive criticism, being able to give it and receive it. Verbal and nonverbal communication, as well as active listening skills without judgment. That is so important, being able to listen and not impose their own value system on others, but just listen to others and be a sounding board for them.
Also, the self-advocacy skills, the action of representing oneself or one's views or interests. And sometimes girls shy away from advocating for themselves. So we want them to realize their own potential and understand their strengths, but we also want them to be able to tell others about it. A lot of times we may be encouraged not to toot our own horns. It's okay to do that. It's okay to teach our young women and our young men to do that as well. So they have to advocate for themselves. They have to communicate what they want. If they want to be a leader, if they want to be first chair, if they want to audition for Allstate, whatever that it is, they have to develop those self-advocacy skills so they can tell you what their desires are. And another part of self-advocacy is making decisions and taking responsibility for those decisions that they make.
And then finally, confidence. Building their confidence is integral to them developing as leaders. Knowing who they are, truly knowing who they are and acknowledging that and accepting it, including critical thinking skills and communication exercises in that so that they can think clearly and critically, make decisions, and then communicate with others once these decisions have been made. And then one big thing that we must remember is just like boys, we always talk about, the boys' bodies are changing and they're going through puberty. The same thing is happening to girls. And oftentimes in our society, especially in this country, girls are very uncomfortable with their appearance and their bodies during this really difficult time, which is middle and high school. And so helping them to build confidence and not allow them to fester and wallow in their insecurities, but accept who they are, love who they are, and know what they would like to improve, but know what they are really good at, and build that confidence so that they can work through those insecurities, and that will reflect in their leadership abilities. So, taking action. Approach your girls that you see have leadership potential and encourage them to explore it. Remember, girls will not always exhibit those masculine qualities, being an overt leader, being really, forceful and commanding. They're not going to always possess those characteristics, but they're going to have their own brand of leadership. And so recognizing that, seeing the potential in them, and then encouraging them to explore that. It's really important. I was that girl that didn't exhibit those traditional leadership qualities. I was really quiet. So it took a really keen eye to see that I could be a leader.
And also be intentional about the inclusion of young ladies on your leadership team. And we mentioned this before, but being intentional about it is important, even at the highest level of leadership. Just be sure that your leadership team actually reflects your program.
Also provide opportunities for your students to see women as leaders and role models by inviting great women directors to clinic, conduct, or adjudicate your band. And when they come in, make sure that you treat them as the equal that they are.
And also be sure to be intentional about performing arrangements and compositions by women, and not just for novelty concerts. Oh, I'm going to have a concert that features all women composers or composers who happen to be women. That's great. But after that concert is over, are you going to consider arrangements and compositions by women as well? So we want to make sure that that's just not a fad, is not just a phase, but that you continue to do this throughout your teaching.
Yes, I love that, Jack. No tokenism. Very good. I love that. Yes. Okay, so let's move forward. Now we've told you about all of this stuff, and we've brought up all these points. Now let's get to work. Let's move forward. So first off, first thing that we can do to take action is just to be mindful of how you, as the director, interact with the women that you bring in to work with your students. So this goes for male and female directors. So if you have a female on the podium, don't talk over them. Don't mansplain them. You know, allow them the space that they deserve to work with your students. If you trust them enough to stand in front of your students, make sure you show that to your students so that they can also model that behavior.
Remember to listen to your young ladies' voices. And the loudest voice in the room may not be the correct one all the time. Your young ladies may not always be the loudest voice in the room, especially if you have very outspoken members in your band program or your chorus or orchestra program. So think about the quiet person in the corner who may have a lot to say, but maybe thinking and just not saying it out loud, and waiting on you to call on her, waiting on you to bring that person to your office and say, hey, I really see that leadership potential in you. What do you think about that? And giving them an opportunity to speak. Have that open door policy so that your students can feel comfortable speaking with you, and that they know that you are listening to them. And then validate what they have to say, not just to listen and then send them on their way, but really validate and listen to what they have to say.
And then finally, recognizing and appreciating the quiet leadership in your girls and your young men as well, and your non-binary students as well. Some students are just not going to be outgoing, and that's okay. You know, Myra and I have been close for years, and I can't believe how long it's been. We've been friends for a very long time, and we're so different. She's outgoing, and you know, she's very friendly, and you know, she gets to know people, and she never meets a stranger. I am a lot more quiet. I'm a lot more guarded, and I've always been that way. And I was lucky that I did have some teachers that recognized that there were leadership qualities that I possessed, but then I had others that didn't. And so I was told that I didn't seem confident enough to be a band or a drum major at my university because I was so quiet. And that was in the 90s, but still, we still run up against those things today. So people make assumptions. Don't make assumptions. If you see that you have a young lady, or like I said, a young man or a non-binary student that is exhibiting qualities of leadership by example, don't let the quiet aspects of their personality throw you off. Students will follow them because when they do speak, they've set such a great example. People will listen because they don't have a lot to say. And when they do speak, it means something.
So we hope we've offered you a few things to think about, some questions for self-reflection, and some things about that you can think about in your program and what to look for in your girls to help them get out of their shells and become leaders in your program as well. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us or feel free to type in the chat. And we do thank the Louisiana Music Educators Association for having us out and to think about this important topic of empowering your girls to lead. Thank you so much, and we hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
And I would also like to just drop a little nugget. Since Myra will not self-advocate, I will do it. We would love for you to help your young ladies grow by signing them up for the Athena Music and Leadership Camp closest to you. So there are lots of opportunities, and it's a great program, and your young ladies will come back refreshed and empowered. And yeah, I'm sorry, I had to drop that nugget.
Thank you, Zandra. All right. Wonderful. And thank you so much. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us, and have a great time for the rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.